Okay, welcome back everyone. Professor Draud here. We're going to finish off Chapter 3 with some of the extra objectives you'll find at the end of your objective list. Let's get started. So, the first is to understand some general functions of ions in the body. So some examples of salts and acids that I could imagine that ionize in the body, things like calcium chloride, magnesium chloride, potassium chloride, sodium bicarbonate, and sodium chloride, or NaCl, table salt. These things ionize in the body. And some important functions in the body are, one, that they are chemically reactive. Two, they determine charge difference across cell membranes, which is important down the line. Maybe we'll talk about things like muscle function. They affect the osmolarity of body fluids and the distribution of water in the body. They help to form essential minerals, and they regulate acid-base balance. Okay, and so those are just some general functions of ions in the body. Now, let's talk a little bit about ions and the intracellular versus the extracellular fluid. So just to define, intracellular fluid is the fluid found inside the cells, inside the cytosol, which is the fluid that contains everything within the cell. And when you talk about the fluid plus everything else inside the cell, that is called the cytoplasm. This intracellular fluid, the fluid within cells, makes up about 65% of all of your body fluid. The extracellular fluid is the fluid found outside of the cells. It takes up the remaining 35%, and there are things like the fluid within tissues, which is called the interstitial fluid, plasma of the blood, and about 2% of just other extracellular fluid. Okay, some ion locations. In the intracellular fluid, you'll find things like potassium, magnesium, phosphate, hydrogen, and hydroxide ions. In the extracellular fluid, you'll find things like sodium, chloride, calcium, bicarbonate, hydrogen, and hydroxide. So these are the locations and the charges of some specific ions. So as I said, in the intracellular fluid, it's the most amount of fluid in your body, about 65% in your cells. And then the remaining 35% is broken down, 25% in interstitial fluids, 8% in the blood, plasma, in the lymph, and 2% is this other. This is a percentage based on 40 liters of total body water content, which is what's average in an adult male. Okay, let's talk a little bit about fluid movement. Now, fluid is continually exchanged between the intracellular fluid and the extracellular fluid compartments, right? Because the cell needs to bring things in and out of the cell that may be in the fluid inside or outside of the cell. Now, the water can move either through osmosis or through filtration through the capillary walls. Osmosis between compartments gets determined by the solute concentration in each compartment. Remember, the water will move towards the area where there is more solute. Electrolytes are the most abundant solutes in the body, so therefore, if you control electrolyte concentrations, you can control the movement of water. The extracellular fluid, you have sodium salts are very important. And the intracellular fluid, there are potassium salts that are very important that affect fluid movement. Okay, and lastly, just a little bit on fluid therapy. Now, we're clearly not going in depth with fluid therapy to anything where you could actually do it. You'll learn more about that in your selected programs as you move along. But fluid therapy is sometimes really necessary in patients who are seriously ill and who have imbalances due to losing a lot of fluids and electrolytes. So in order to restore and maintain fluid volume, composition, and distribution, there are many different types of fluids that can be used in fluid therapy: isotonic, hypertonic, and hypotonic solutions. One that we can talk about is normal saline, also known as physiological saline. It is a mixture of water and sodium chloride at about 0.9%. This is an isotonic solution, meaning that the water within your cells and this normal saline are exactly the same. So water will move across the membrane at an equal amount. It will not flow into the cell too fast, and it won't come out of the cell too fast. You usually will only use normal saline in short-term emergency situations because normal saline can actually deplete other physiological electrolytes, and it doesn't like to stay in the circulatory system for very long. So that's normal saline or physiological saline. They're one and the same. But Ringer's solution, or lactated Ringer's solution, is also an isotonic solution, but it contains a few more things. It contains multiple different electrolytes and something called lactate, which is a buffer. A buffer is to make sure that the pH of something does not change too drastically. This is frequently used for IV fluids, and it's better to use lactated Ringer's solution than normal saline or physiological saline for longer periods of time. Okay, with that being said, it's a very short video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.